What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the After Effect Podcast Show. I am your host, LeBron Stephen, but you can call me LBZ, L Boogie, Big Brown, B Brown, LB, Rondy. The choice is yours. Welcome to episode 90. Yes, I said 90. We have a very special guest, Cecil Shorts III, is on the podcast today. Cleveland native, played his high school football at Collinwood High School. From there, he attended Mount Union University in the state of Ohio. From there, he ended up being the Division III National Offensive Player of the Year in 2009. Entering the 2011 NFL Draft, he was a fourth round pick. I want to say 114 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ended up having a 6-year NFL career and now is the game day host for the Houston Texans in the NFL. Super uber excited to get Cecil on the show to talk about his career, kind of his career trajectory and how he climbed the ladder and got to where he is now, and just to find out his after effects. So just waiting for him to jump on, and once he jumps on, we will go.
The stride at the right time. So my hope is
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect. And test. All right.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. We good, man. So, yeah, bro. This is
close that. 1 second. Sorry.
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, please. All right. Ooh, sorry, man. I'm at work and I got to hide and.
No, you good. You good. Hey, I appreciate you carving out the time, man. Yeah, I know you're a busy guy, but this is called the After Effect Podcast Show, man. I started it. It'll be 4 years in June.
wow.
So next month. So you know, it's always been my belief that all of us athletes, we have an after effect or an aftershock from our careers. You know, the wins, the losses, the injuries, the politics, everything that we essentially go through from you know, being a little kid to a grown man. And this is kind of just a free and safe space for us to, you know, relive that journey. You know, what I found out is like a lot of guys don't get to relive it. You know, we're so busy trying to be providers and on to the next thing. So this is an opportunity to relive the journey. It's a free and safe space. And if we can, to try to push the culture forward.
Yeah. All right. I'm down for it, brother. Sounds like a good time.
Okay. So yeah, we can get started, man. I always just kind of like, you know, dialing it back for a second. So I know you was born in 87. I was born in 89. Obviously, you know, I feel like I'm getting old. I'm 35 now, but I always say like, you know, we weren't raised like the kids are now, you know, in the 90s, you know, there was no internet. I think internet came out in like 98 and we didn't probably get a computer in my house to maybe 2001. So, you know, we grew up different. We had to really be outside. We had to interact instead of be on a tablet or be on our phones. We had to interact. We had to make up games. We had to be creative. And so I just think the 90s was a different time. So from your viewpoint, how would you say it was growing up in the 90s for you in Cleveland, Ohio?
Man, it was I think you hit the nail on the head. We were outside.
Yeah.
Like and outside now means it's something different when you're grown, right? Say, well, I'm outside. Like
right.
That's different. But we were outside. Like we had to play outside. We were outside playing any bounce, as you know what that is. We're
You know
playing
it.
football,
Dino
Man. Like we were playing everything. You know what I mean?
Right.
You were outside literally making up games, whether it was curveball or whatever else. Like
Right.
we were outside and we had video games, but it didn't affect us the same way it affects people now. Right. Like that's all they do. You have the world at your hands on your phone.
Right.
I think as a kid, that benefited us because a lot of reasons. Communication, I think, is huge. Right. We wanted to talk to a girl. We couldn't DM. We had to have a pencil and some paper.
And a paper, right. And you had to go up and talk to them.
Go up and actually talk in person.
Right.
Get to know them, right? Like I guess intimate connections. You know what I mean? When that's just friends, family, girls you want to talk to, interested, that it was just a different time.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that we were raised that way. I love that. You know, my dad and mom make sure we were out the house and go outside and play, go do something, go play with your friends on the street, right?
Right. My parents were the same way.
So it was, I think it benefited us because now if I'm in a meeting or if I'm interviewing or if I'm have to just interact with anybody, in any business setting or any setting at all, no matter what the race, no matter where we're at, I know how to communicate with that particular person.
Exactly.
And I think me being able to be outside as a kid and communicate, being different sports platforms and sports realms, right?
Right.
And then, of course, as you go to college and you're around different races and all this stuff, you learn how to communicate with different people.
Exactly.
And I just think growing up outside really helped propel that for me. I say us as a generation.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree. I always say that I believe us millennials, we're the best generation, right? Because we grew up pre-internet. So we do know how to communicate and interact with people and not just be on our phones, kind of be where our feet are and, and be present. But then also, we understand the internet, you know what I mean? So, we know how that works and we know how to use that as well. So I feel like our generation is kind of the best of both worlds because like I have a little brother, he's only 21 and he has like trouble interacting. He's just always like head down like this on his phone, just always. So I get mad at him when I text him. If you take a while to text me back, I say, because I know you on your phone. I know you saw my text.
Oh, you.
So I always say, I think we're the best generation, man. So one thing that I like to highlight and talk to guys about with really former athletes is, kind of when that light switch hit on. I've heard some guys say the 8th grade, and those are more advanced guys. Some guys say the 10th. I would say for me, the 10th grade. But when would you say your light switch hit on? Like, I always try to paint the picture, growing up, I would sit in the living room, and me and my father would watch college football, right? All day Saturday. And we would watch NFL football all day Sunday. I would lay my newspaper on the ground. My father would get McDonald's or whatever. And I would sit there, eat my McDonald's on the newspaper, watch. And just when I first started playing, I'm like, man, I think one day I can do that. Growing up in Ohio, one day maybe I could play Division I, or maybe I can play in the Big Ten. But then once I got to high school and, started varsity in 9th grade and then 10th grade, made all league, that's when my light switch hit on like, oh, wow, like, no, I can actually really do this. Like, this has always been a dream, but it can actually happen. So when would you say that light switch hit on for you at Collinwood?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me ask you this. Light switch, meaning what? It hit on like, hey, I want to pursue this in college.
Right. Oh, I think that I can actually play college football. Like, it's not just a pipe dream anymore. Like, I think I can actually do it.
I think for me, it was like junior year, right?
Junior year. Okay.
Because for me, during my high school years, I think developmental wise, as far as physical, I was just a skinny kid, right? I had to learn work ethic, right? One thing I love to do is compete. Like, I love to compete. So I learned that being around the older guys, because, in track in Ohio, so I'm in Texas, and track in Texas, there's like a JV track and a varsity track.
Okay.
Ohio ain't no JV track.
Right.
I remember my freshman year, I'm running against Ted Ginn in the prelim.
Oh, wow.
You can see it. I'm like, well,
yeah.
You guys take your whoopings, right?
All right. He's the best of the best.
Developmental wise, I think my junior year, I was like, yo, my body started coming along, my speed started coming along. I think that year we were 7-3 in football, which is like a lot of good things happening. I'm like, yeah, I know I can do this. So some college, we started visiting camps, going to camps in the summer, 707.
Right. You start being able to compare other competition and say, no, I'm basically as good as him.
Yeah. So I think going into my junior year is like, all right, this is I know I can play at some level in college. This is what I want to do. So it took a while for me. I think for a few reasons. One, I think I was just an immature kid. I love sports, right? But I just think I was an immature kid. And two, I had to learn to be confident in myself. So I had to learn the hard work process. I had to learn just what needed to be done to try to get to that level. And then once I started to figure it out, I just put the work in, and it wasn't no looking back. It's like, all right, if you be one of these guys, you got to kind of separate yourself and outwork whoever you see and whoever you don't see, because there's 100 million people with the same dream you got.
Exactly. Yeah, I always say that. I think growing up in Cleveland, I mean, naturally, you have that blue collar mentality. I think we are all for the most part raised like that, especially if we have our fathers in our life, we have that blue collar mentality. So we know how to compete. We know how to not quit. We know how to, grab onto that grit and push through. And so, I think that's helped, and everything else that guys from Cleveland do after that. So I was researching you and I heard you say on the Varsity House pod, speaking to your class in 2006, how, there were so many division guys that went Division I at Glenville, and you got not necessarily discouraged, but you kind of got down on yourself because you weren't getting that recognition or that type of level of recruiting during your junior or senior year. So just kind of talk your recruiting process. How did it go for you? And then essentially just how did you push through to ultimately choose Mount Union and just keep that positive mindset when you felt like you weren't garnering that certain level of recruiting like those other guys?
Man, so that year, 06, and you went to the Ville. It's a special place.
Yeah.
Special place. And I want to say, when I was in school in a few years, when did you graduate? 08, 07?
07. Yeah, the next year.
So like maybe, I'm not sure the year, maybe from like 02 to, it's like a decade period.
Yeah.
Where it was like the glory years when we seen it before us, we were in it, and then a few years,
After
it was like
us.
glory period.
Right.
Where unbelievable talent in Glenville. Like you can't deny it, right?
Yeah.
And year after year after year, you are one of the greats as well. Going to Iowa, going to Ohio State, going to these places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And then you compete against them, right? So me, I competed against you guys in track and basketball and baseball and football.
Nonstop.
With my nonstop, year round, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my eyes is like, yo. And there were some guys, like I said, I would never say I'm the best athlete ever. It was tons of guys way better.
Yeah, I mean, your class 2006, I mean, it was
way better. It was crazy.
Ray Small, Ray Fisher,
Oh,
Devin
man.
Jones.
Rob Rose,
Brian Browning, Arvell Nelson, Derek
like
Smith, Tweet. It was so many guys, man.
You could go on and on and on and on and on. You know what I mean? That year was 23 guys, 22, 23 guys that went D1.
That went D1, yeah.
I'm like, I can compete with those guys. So why am I not getting looked at? Not saying I'm better. I'm saying I can compete, right? So I think for me, the recruiting process, it was 3 schools, Division I schools that were interested. It was like University of Buffalo, Eastern Michigan, Akron, and Youngstown State. I guess about 4, right?
Okay, gotcha.
Kind of all MAC interested. Coach Ginn helped me with that. He was throwing schools my way. I was very grateful for that.
Right.
But I got frustrated because nobody wanted to pull the trigger. I'll never forget. We went to Akron going into my senior year. It had to be 3 times during the summer. They invited us down, and they had a huge 7-on-7 tournament. And I talked to the whole coaching staff before the 7-on-7 tournament. They're like, hey, we're really interested in you. They've been calling, they've been writing letters, the whole night. Like, oh, they about to offer. So we go to the particular 7-on-7 camp. Like I said, meet with the staff beforehand, and then they send the whole entire staff to watch our game versus I forgot who we were playing. It was a red and white school. So they're sitting on the sideline watching our game.
Right.
At that point, I'm quarterback, DB. They're looking at me as an athlete, and I go off. Off. Throw like 3 touchdowns. I have 2 pick sixes to the house, and I run to where they're sitting at. And on my pick 6, they're like in the end zone. I just I was just hyped, right? The competitive fire we have, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
So crazy day. Leave that day, I'm thinking there's no way they don't offer me.
Right.
No.
Off top.
No offer at all. Buffalo. So I'm kind of hearing throughout the season from Buffalo again. Buffalo, Akron, Eastern Michigan, Youngstown State. Then once December hits, talking to them the whole 9, probably once every week or whatever. Once December hits, crickets. And January or February is signing day back in the day. Now it's signing days. Right. February is signing day. So December is crunch time. So I'm thinking whatever. But December hit, nothing. Nothing from Akron, nothing from a little bit from Eastern Michigan. Buffalo was on me hard, but then Buffalo fired their whole staff.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, that's the one I for sure thought was going to offer me. They fired their whole staff. Akron gives me a call and says, hey, Youngstown State gives me a call and says, hey, we love you. We think we're going to offer you as a preferred walk-on. And I'm like, okay, cool. I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to say no because I think, somebody else is going to offer. I appreciate the offer. No, I'll take that back. I didn't say no. I just said I appreciate the offer, right? But in my mind and my father's mind, we'll get some other Division I opportunities.
Of course.
Nothing happened. Akron asked, hey, we can, if you walk on, we can help you out. And then I end up hearing nothing from Eastern Michigan. So the frustration came to my mind, like, yo, what's really going on?
Right.
Then there was some D2 school that came around, I guess, like in January, went to a fair. And when you go to these fairs of colleges, they kind of, back in our day, they had like DVDs we had to pass out.
Yeah, I remember.
You go to a fair and there's like a bunch of tables and you kind of walk around to different schools. And it was D2 and D3 schools. So I'm already a little frustrated. And but from that fair, I got some looks at from D2 schools.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, cool. But they all wanted to play DB. And I'm like, DB, cool. But in my mind, I'm a quarterback, right?
Okay.
If I go D1, all right, I'll do what you say.
Right.
But lower division in that mind. And again, I'm young, dumb.
Did you want to play quarterback? Like if you went D1?
Yes, I wanted to play.
Okay.
That was my first, like, I'm like, hey, I want to play quarterback.
So
now, if they give me a free ride, I'm like, okay, I'll do what you want.
Okay, but you had like play receiver, so you kind of knew how to run routes, or
I never played receiver.
Okay.
No,
okay.
I was quarterback and corner.
Oh wow, okay.
Never played receiver.
Okay.
So went to the D2 schools. There was a couple of them like Lock Haven, Tiffin, Ashland.
Okay.
The local schools.
That whole Ohio circuit. Okay.
The Ohio circuit, a little bit of PA, but they wanted me as a DB, and I'm like, I don't want to play DB. And then a couple of D3s came along, like Mount Union, Heidelberg, a few others, and Mount Union stood out. We wanted to visit. Mount Union stood out because they were winning all the dang on time.
Right.
Literally going crazy, winning these long winning streaks. The one game I saw them, they played on ESPN.
I saw that one too.
I'm like,
I think that was when Pierre Garçon may have been there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he went crazy.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I'm like, okay, maybe this is the place. But it was just discouraging.
Right.
Because you work hard and you see guys that are going D1. I'm like, yo, I can compete with them.
Of course.
Looking now back, I understand why.
Okay.
And if you're trying to go to Iowa, to Ohio States, to the UConns, to the Alabamas, whatever the case may be, your stature matters. Like they're looking for the best of the best, right? So you can't just be good or just all conference. You have to fit the billing. And I don't believe I fit the billing, just being honest. I wasn't the fastest. I was probably 155. If you 155 come out of high school, you better be rolling, right?
Right.
And I wasn't rolling. I was decently fast, but I wasn't rolling. Okay. I just understand the process better now, if that makes sense. So I'm like, all right, I probably was a D2, D3 guy coming out of high school, even though I thought I could have went D1, right? And there was some D1s that believed in me, but they didn't pull the trigger because, I didn't probably fit the height, weight, the speed comparison, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. It took me to be a mature adult to understand that. But in that season of life, I was frustrated. I was pissed off. I was motivated like crazy. Like, okay, so all these schools gonna pass on me? Oh, you gonna feel this.
Right. Like I put that battery in your back.
Absolutely. And you know how we are from Cleveland. Like, we gonna show you.
Oh yeah, you know it.
We're gonna show you. Like, you're gonna feel what I'm talking about. You're gonna feel what
I feel. Right. I always say that. Like, well, now as an older guy, I call it like being stubborn a little bit, because it's like it don't matter what you say, do. If we feel you don't rock with us, you don't think we can do it, we know we're gonna prove you wrong.
Yep.
Right.
And that's exactly what it was.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you say that, man, because going to Iowa and just having friends at other places, like you see so many guys, like I could say even in my recruiting class 2007, like may have had, like I've seen DBs or receivers that like had the height, but literally you would see their skill set and say, man, how did you get here? like but like you said, have the stature, like have the height and stature, but as far as like talent and skill set, like just very raw, like or maybe not as advanced as maybe we were in Cleveland, like and that's just my opinion. So that's why it kind of sucks when I hear stuff like that, knowing that you were good enough and you had performed and you were a high performer in high school. Then you see some of these other guys at other places, like even like Jamel Hines, he played safety at Ohio State. We would call and talk all the time. Like once he went to Ohio State, he would, because I redshirted and he didn't. He played as a freshman, and he would tell me like, man, Brian, some of these guys are like because Ohio State, we wanted to go there together, and growing up in Ohio, you want to go to Ohio State. So I waited to the last minute trying to get that offer. And they ended up offering another guy from Florida that ended up coming there. But some of the other guys that they had offered in our class, Jamel was like, man, you better than these dudes. And then your class, 2006, they signed like eight linebackers, a whole bunch of linebackers. So they didn't offer that many the next year. So yeah, the politics of it, man, I never really had like I think trying to make it to the NFL, it gave me a lot more empathy for guys that have that like recruiting struggle because I didn't really go through that. You know what I mean? So it
How
definitely
many
provides.
offers you had in high school?
Man, coming out, I want to say I
Oh,
had about 20.
wow.
Yeah, about 20 D1. It's funny. I heard you mention Heidelberg. Heidelberg actually offered me a partial for basketball.
Really?
For basketball, they offered me a
That's
partial for
cool.
basketball. I thought that was funny. I showed Coach Holt the basketball player. I mean the basketball coach at the Ville.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. Like I'm not playing Division III basketball. yeah,
That's crazy. That's crazy.
yeah. It's funny, man. So, one thing that I really like highlighting is that transition from high school to college. In another thing, either article or video I watched of you, you had talked about how your transition wasn't that easy, right? You experienced injuries your freshman year. And I always like to be honest and transparent. My transition wasn't that easy either. We growing up in Cleveland, predominantly like black area, and to go to a PWI where, I mean, man, Iowa City, Iowa was 98% white. So it's a culture shock. It's a culture shock, and I felt like it took me, I want to say, got there in August for camp. I would say 4 or 5 months. Like I didn't feel comfortable till bowl prep in that December. Like it took
Oh,
4 or 5 months just to feel comfortable. And the schedule is rigorous. And so
yeah.
talk about your transition and just kind of, experiencing adversity like as soon as you got on campus that freshman year.
Well, I mean, we come from similar backgrounds. Growing up in Cleveland, in the inner city, the schools we went to were predominantly black, right? Probably a 98, you could say 99%.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
We didn't really see anybody else until you went outside of the inner city, right? So going into that environment and Alliance, Ohio from Mount Union, when the PWI, it was a transition. It was a transition. But it was a few transitions. One was, this natural school transition, being on your own and being disciplined enough to go to class, being disciplined enough to get up.
Right, waking up on your own, right.
And
right.
waking up on your own and eating and doing all this stuff, right?
Were you excited about that? Or like for me, I was, my parents taught independence very early on. So I was ironing, washing my own clothes, doing chores at like 6. So I was waking up on my own and walking to school really, really early. So, but I was just excited to get out of the house and do it, and more so showed that I can do it. How did you feel as far as that independence?
I was similar. I knew how to wash clothes, iron, all that good stuff, but I was lazy.
Okay.
So my struggle was doing it on my own consistently.
Right.
Being a mature enough adult to wake up at 7:45 or 6:30 and be in my class at 7 or 7:30 on time, right?
Right.
And at Collinwood or the Ville, the teacher will kind of look out for you, get that relationship. And college,
always.
Here.
Yeah, right.
They're like, oh, you late? Why are you late? Boom, you get the points off. Right. I'll never forget Jason Candle, who recruited me to Mount Union. He's the head coach at Toledo now.
Okay.
It was like he came to my door because I missed like a week of class. I got hurt my freshman year.
Yeah, I think I read that.
Well, let me go back. Coming into Mount Union, it's 125 freshmen that come in. So you're one of 125, if not more. There's 3 JV teams.
Okay.
There's a team that play on Saturday, which is, the team that everybody sees. And there's 3 JV teams that plays on Sunday. We play against prep schools. We play against JUCOs. You play against other D3. You play against some D2s. They got JV teams.
Okay, never knew that.
But there's 3 teams, purple, white, and black. So you're fighting every day to even get noticed.
Okay.
Because it's so many guys. You come in, I was a quarterback coming in, it's like 12 other quarterbacks. If you're a receiver, there's 25, 30 receivers, right? You see what I'm saying? Like it's grind to get noticed, right?
Yeah.
So that was a transition. Just really working, focus, and learn the plays and stand out. And that part I enjoyed because I get to compete, right? But the part of where I struggled was when I got hurt. So I got hurt in the JV game on a Sunday, hurt my ankle, tore some ligaments in my ankle, had to be out for the season. The only way you can redshirt in D3 is by taking a medical redshirt. So I took a medical redshirt. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll take a medical redshirt, I'll be good. Right. But I kind of let that get me down and took that focus off of football, off of class, kind of took some time off of going to my very first early class on, I think it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Right. I was in that class, and then Jason Candle comes knocking my door, boom, 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 boom. Like 6:30 in the morning. No, 6 o'clock in the morning. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, who the hell is knocking on my door at 6 in the morning?
It's early, right?
It was the assistant head football coach. It was our offensive coordinator, Jason Candle. Right. Get your behind up. Get dressed now. You're going to class. You missed the whole week. Oh, I'm like, yo, what is he doing? So I close the door, go back to sleep. He come back in the door again 5 minutes later. Oh, don't make me beat your ass. So I'm like, let me listen. I go to class. Boom. Go to class. He talks to the professor for me so I won't fail the course, right? I got to do the makeup work. But that was the big transition.
Okay.
Fighting through injury, understanding, okay, I'm on my own. You got to really put the work in, not only on the field, but in the classroom as well, right? It's not going to
around.
You got to be an all-around person. So I had to really deal with or understand how important the education side was, right? And then I was just blessed to have a coach that cared about me enough so I wouldn't flunk out, so I would go to class and kind of push me in that area. Yeah. And then my last transition was going from quarterback to receiver. I was a quarterback in my life. That's all I knew. But that spring of my freshman year, I ran track, ended up being an All-American.
Okay.
And like, hey, we want you to switch to receiver. I'm like, nah, I don't know if I want to switch to receiver. They're like, listen, if you don't switch to receiver, we just had a sophomore quarterback that's going to be our starter. He won the national championship last year. You're going to ride the bench for 3 years. Or you can find your way on the field as a receiver and be the backup quarterback. So I'm like, I guess I ain't got no choice, right? But learning how to play receiver my redshirt freshman year, I was getting jammed up. I had to learn how to run routes. I knew what spots I had to be in, but it was about how to get to that spot in an efficient way.
Right.
And I had to learn that, right?
Okay, right.
That redshirt freshman year, it was 5 seniors in front of me, and then it was me at number 6.
Okay.
So I knew my time was coming. I just had to learn the position. I happened to be under Pierre Garcon, who helped me a ton, and the rest of the seniors there, Brandon Bame, other guys, they helped me a ton learn how to play the position.
Right.
And just really like learn how to tone, like that's how to dial in. And
right.
That summer went to the grind mode. So
yeah, learn the route tree and learn the different nuances of how to run routes. And okay.
How to get off press. Ooh, I had no idea how to get off press. I'm in there getting beat up.
right. Jam.
I got you. I'm just getting beat up, boy. It was tough.
Okay. Yeah. And I love I always love a triumph story, right? So, you experience adversity, getting injured, and then having to switch positions and having to learn a new position. But then in 2009, you end up being a D3 National Offensive Player of the Year. So just talk about that process, right? Like learning the position, learning to essentially try to master the position, and then in 2009 having that hell of a season and ultimately becoming the National Offensive Player of the Year. Did you feel like victorious? Did you as football players, man, we're always focused on the next game, right? We never really have the time to relish on whatever we've done in the past. So just talk about ultimately transitioning into one of the best guys in D3.
Man, listen, again, so I think it was 07, my redshirt freshman year, 5 seniors in front of me. And it was me and a guy named Vince Petrozello, who went to Lake Catholic. And then once they graduated, Pierre Garcon got drafted 6th round.
Yeah,
to the Indianapolis Colts. And that something, you mentioned the light spark, something clicked for me like, yo, you can get drafted from Division III?
Right.
I'm like, let me take this receiver thing serious.
And he went to the Colts and went off.
And went off. You hear me?
So not only get drafted, but also be productive. So now,
with Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison and
now
Reggie,
you have a landscape, right?
Dog, like he went off. So I'm like, okay, if you can do this, something clicked for me. So to go into that summer, I stayed down at school, and it was just grind mode. Like literally running routes, lifting, sprinting every single day. And for us, we had to work in the summer. Well, I took myself, I had to work in the summer. So we worked, and then we went to workouts, and that's just what it was every day. And then on the weekends, every other weekend, every 2 weeks, I think it was, we had 7-on-7s. So for me, it was literally, I'm going to outwork every single person I know. Like I was like obsessed with trying to get better. So I'll be walking around Walmart buying, stuff for, the house or whatever, and running routes. Like just thinking about how I'm gonna get out this route. We go this way.
Turn it down the aisle.
No, dead serious. And we all athletes do it, right? I promise you.
That's how I know. Like that's how I know.
Hooping like that, like getting off a block.
I would be out like doing pass rush moves, like practicing my spin.
Just random, right? And it was just go mode in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So going into 2008, that my first time ever playing receiver full time. I got some time sparingly in 07, my redshirt freshman year. My redshirt sophomore year is like, all right, you're the guy.
Right.
And that year was just really getting my feet wet. My first game ever, I'll never forget, it was against a team called St. John Fisher from New York. They came on down and had a lot of success. Had a couple touchdowns, 100 yards. I'm like, all right, I get it now. I get it. But I just kept progressing as the year went on. Had a really good year, like over 1,500 yards receiving, I think, that first year. So now going into 09, I'm like, oh, it's on. Because now I know what I'm doing.
It's go time.
Like now I'm a receiver. Now I understand the concepts. I understand the route tree. I understand how to get off prep. I understand everything. And my mind is like, there's nobody stopping me. Right. Now I'm really gonna prove. I don't belong at this level. Because I'm still upset I ain't go D1.
Right.
I'm still I ain't got down.
Yeah, that's never gonna leave your body, right?
That's never gonna leave. So I get the chance too, and it was crazy because like you'll see Ray Small on TV, you'll see other guys playing Rob Rose, you'll see Ted, you'll see all these guys on TV. It's like, all right, they scored 2 touchdowns. Like, all right, I'm about to go get it. Like it just exciting to see other people in Cleveland doing well. Right?
Exactly.
So you want to go out there and do well. So going into 09, I'm like, I'm not. It might sound crazy, but I'm like, if I don't get 100 yards and 2 touchdowns a game, I'm pissed off. Because I want to prove I don't belong. My dad was like, yo, if you want to make the league, you can't just be good.
Right.
You don't belong. You got to dominate.
You got to go off every week after week.
Every single week.
Right.
So that year, it was just crazy. It was like 1,700 yards, 25 touchdowns. I was returning, doing all this stuff. And then my goal the following year is like, yo, I'm not getting tackled. It was just crazy stuff in my mind. I'm like, how I'm going to separate myself.
Right.
This game, I'm getting tackled. You ain't going to tackle me this game. I'm going to run by you. I'm a stiff arm. I'm a juke. But that's the mindset I had to have. Like, yo, I have to dominate. I love that. I have to prove I don't belong at this level. But what helped me also is, like you said, Pierre was balling. And the NFL's a copycat league. So they're like, where did Pierre Garcon come from? Oh, he came from Mount Union, and he's had 900 yards with Peyton Manning. Like, where is this? So they came back to the school.
Right.
And scouts, all agents just kept coming. I'm like, that was all Pierre.
Right.
I was grateful for the people in front of me because that helped me get noticed. But yeah, man, it was, to answer your question though, I never, as an athlete, you know this, it's always you're taught. If it's a good play, move on to the next one. Most important play is the next one. If it's a bad play, short memory, move on to the next one.
Exactly.
So when those accolades in 09 and 08 and 2010 started to come, it's like, all right, I'm on to the next thing. I'm not satisfied. On to the next thing. Thank you. Shake your hand, and then you're on to the next thing. Right. So I really didn't appreciate it like my father, my mother, or like how I do now. Right. Back it's like, wow, that was pretty cool. But in the moment, you just in grind mode.
Exactly. You, like I said earlier, you always think about the next thing. Right. I mean, so that's a perfect segue, man. So revisit, the 2011 NFL draft. You ultimately end up going in the 4th round, pick 114, which was actually before, Pierre Garcon went in the 6th round a year or two before you. So just kind of relive 2011 NFL draft. What were you hearing? And then, to ultimately hear your name called in the 4th round from a Division III school, all the adversity that you went through and you pushed through to hear your name called, that's the ultimate dream for all of us, especially coming from Cleveland. Talk about that a little bit.
That was a surreal moment. A surreal moment. You work so hard. I had that chip on my shoulder, like I got to prove to everybody, like, hey, this is, I don't belong here. I remember going into my senior year, there was again, Pierre was balling, so it helped me a ton.
Mm-hmm.
So tons of agents were reaching out almost every other day. Scouts coming up to the school often, and that's just unheard of for a D3 school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got an invite to the East-West Shrine game while we're still in season.
Wow.
I remember coach walking to me like, "Hey man, congratulations." I'm like, "Well, what? Like, you got invited to the East-West Shrine game?" And I'm like, "Okay, cool. What's that?" And that's a really big deal. Like, you get the boom. I'm like, "Wow." So it was just a lot of things. Again, I didn't fully understand at the time because you're in go mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking about the next. You think you deserve it when in reality it's a blessing. You know what I mean? It's a blessing. So everything was so surreal. I remember my senior year I actually had turf toe, so I missed 4 games.
Okay.
And I actually found out during during having turf toe, I had my first child.
Okay.
So I'm like, yo, this is more motivation coming.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's your oldest.
I got to get back. I remember playing ball in Wallace, our last, our 9th game of the season, played 10 games in playoffs. I think it was the 9th game of the season. We got ball in Wallace. It's my first game back. I missed like a month. And my toe's still killing me. If you ever had turf toe, people don't really understand it till you get it. It's like you can't function watching toe.
Right. You can't walk or run. Yeah, I've never had turf toe. Most of the time, like skill position guys get it usually. Yeah. Okay.
And it's just weird because it wasn't like a big. I'm like turf toe. I'm like, oh, I'll be good. I was in a walking boot the entire year. I couldn't do nothing on it. Barely practiced, but
gotcha.
I'll never forget. I was so excited for that game because I went back home to Cleveland. You know, ball in Washington, Cleveland. Went back home to play, or it's in Berea, but close enough to Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And, scouts were at the game, and I'm like, I can't lose this opportunity. My girlfriend at the time, she's my wife now. She was pregnant, and I'm like, it's so much riding on this, and I'm like, it hurts so bad to even just walk into the game with a boot. Opening kickoff. They score first. Opening kickoff to us. I get it. I take it to the house. Barely can run routes, catch 2 or 3 touchdowns that game. And I'm just like, it's on. Like it's on. And then we end up going to the championship. We end up losing it that year, but going through the draft process, flying to California, training, picking at agents.
Right. The whole process.
That whole process was just surreal. Like my dad came up with a team of people. My dad, my mom, and about 7 other people. And he created a team, and they met with about 30 agents, and then they picked the top 3. And then I met with the top 3. Mm-hmm. And I chose from there. And that was like, I'm like, this is really about to happen.
Right.
Going to training. And I'm like, yo, I'm out here in California. This is nuts.
So were you hearing like mid-round between like 3 and 6, 3 and 5?
I was everything from the highest is 3. One person predicted me second. I'm like, I ain't going second. We like, nah, that's probably, unless a lot of receivers go 1 and early 2.
Right.
You ain't going to second. And I was at anything from 2 to 7 or 2 to undrafted. 2 to undrafted. So going through the process, go to the combine, and going to the combine is like Cam Newton, Mark Ingram, JJ.
Oh, Watt. Yeah, that was that year. Yeah.
And these guys, like at D3, we play at noon, and then we watch the big time games on TV.
Right.
So I'm from Ohio. I'm arguing with a guy from Florida. Oh, Ohio State better, or the Big Ten is better than SEC. Just going back and forth, right?
Right.
So seeing these guys in person, I had to change my mindset real quick. Like, yo, you fanboy, and you need to calm down.
I'm here. We the same.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like, oh, Cam Newton just threw me a curl route. I'm like, oh, Cam, this. I'm like, no. Dial in. I'm like, dial in. You got that, right? So it was surreal being there. Like I watched it on TV for years.
Yeah.
Years. Excited about the 40s, arguing about this stuff. And then I was actually doing it. And people at my school like, hey, we're watching you on TV. It was surreal. And going to different pro days, and then I had my own pro day, and then you're traveling to different teams to visit. I met Jerry Jones in person, and Jerry Jones telling me, hey, we're going to draft either you, a guy named Jonathan Baldwin, or I forgot the other guy's name. And I'm like, Jerry Jones just told me he's going to draft me or 2 other guys. Like, what?
Crazy.
Like, what? This is crazy.
I know, man.
So my name was called. Well, let me go back. So day 2 happened, so I don't know how it is now. Day 1 is usually round 1, right, of the draft. Day 2 is 2 and 3, and then 3 is 4 through 7.
4 through 7, yeah. I believe it's the same infrastructure now. Yeah.
Okay. So I knew I wasn't going first round. I was hopeful for second round. I'm like, I need a bunch of receivers to go off the board so they can.
Right.
Right. I'm like, okay, nothing happened. All right, cool. So I go to sleep, come back the next day. Everybody at my mom's house, and we're hanging out. And my agent texts me, hey, there's not a lot of receivers off the board. I'm not hearing nothing right now. We might be in a long wait. Just get your mind ready. So that kind of discouraged me. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm kind of just sitting there on the couch. And then 10 minutes later, it's round 4, pick 114. No, it's like pick 112 or something.
Okay.
Get a phone call from somebody I don't recognize. I'm like, hello? And it had to be Jacksonville. And then that process was just like crazy.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You just went 4th round from a D3 school.
Right. And
like,
you know what
it was just surreal.
Yeah. And what I love highlighting is you're literally at the high getting drafted, right? Like you're at your highest moment, but then like 2 days later, now you back in grind mode because now you got the helmet on. You made it. You made it. You a draft pick. But now it's time to go and show and prove. So you're literally right back in grind mode trying to prove yourself as a drafted rookie.
Yeah.
So to kind of talk about that transition of, being that draft pick and being on that high and then kind of getting back in grind mode. And then ultimately within your first 4 years with Jacksonville, leading the team and receiving, and just talk about that transition in those first 4 years.
What was crazy, you get drafted, and that year was the lockout year. So we get drafted. I talked to the owner, talked to the head coach, talked to the GM, talked to the receiver coach, and then we don't hear from them again because it's a lockout year. So we couldn't go to interviews. We couldn't go get playbooks. We couldn't go meet nobody until the day before camp.
Right, I remember that.
So I ended up couldn't talk to none of them, but the quarterback at the time was like David Garrard in Jacksonville, and he flew us out. So he flew Blaine Gabbert, who was a first-round pick that year, and he flew myself out to Jacksonville for a week. And we stayed out there. We worked out with the team, getting to know people, kind of just ran around, played or whatever. And then after that, we were just by ourselves. So I was working on roofs for about a month.
Okay.
And then late July comes, you get a phone call. In training, of course, right? You get a phone call, and I'm working a Mount Union camp, like a kids camp. I'm just working, trying to make money.
Right.
They're like, hey, Cecil, this is so-and-so from Jacksonville. The lockout's over. We're gonna fly you in tomorrow. Where are you at? I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I'm glad I've been training.
Right.
So
of course.
in basically a day before training camp.
Okay.
We fly in, no contract signed. I got to sit out the first. I always say people, I held out. I had to sit out on purpose so I couldn't sign a contract.
Yeah.
But I first day of training camp practice, I signed a contract, and they give me a playbook that was, I ain't got no book, like it's like this thick.
Oh yeah, I'm already knowing.
I'm like, ain't no beginner's book, playbook for dummies or something. Like what is this?
Right.
So my rookie year was a blur. I had to learn how to be professional. I had to learn how to study plays again. I mean, you at Iowa, you know your playbook by the back of your hand after your freshman year. You in the same plays over and over and over again for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
That's how it's the same plays 4 or 5 years, right? I'm like, I know all my plays, but now I had to relearn how to study again. And actually take time to study. I'll study a little bit my rookie year, then I'm good, and I go out there and mess up. Preseason was a breeze. Killed it in preseason. I got an MVP of a couple of preseason games. Got, they give you like a watch or something, or you get the interview, radio interview. Oh, Cecil. And then regular season comes with a different speed.
Yeah.
It's a different speed. I'll never forget opening day 2011, Tennessee Titans. It's our first game of the year. It's a home game. I cried on the sideline because I'm like, wow, I made it. Like, this is crazy.
NFL, yeah. Regular season.
This is nuts, right? Fans going crazy. They punt the ball first. I catch it. I make one guy miss. I'm going down our sidelines, probably like a 9-10 yard return. I'm like thinking I'm gone. And the long snapper come, bow, knock me all the way into our Gatorade.
that was your welcome to the NFL moment.
Like, oh snap!
And long snappers hitting like this.
I'm like, they're like, welcome, little Cease. But that year was a rough year for me, right? I had to learn how to be a professional, learn how to study, learn to take care of my body, learn this is your job now. There is nothing else to do.
Exactly.
I'm putting clubs or clothes or girls before this. My rookie year I only had 2 catches, and it was all my fault. Go through the process of learning, right? So we fired our head coach that year, who was Jack Del Rio. Interim head coach comes in, and he gives me a shot. I'll never forget my first ever touchdown was Monday Night Football over Quentin Jammer. A pass we never throw. We never throw this pass, man. Never. And Blaine threw, and I looked up like, oh, I just reacted and caught it like touchdown. Going into that, so rookie year having only 2 catches. Mel Tucker. He was the interim head coach, and he kind of sat me down like, hey, what's your plan for the offseason? I'm like, I don't really got one. I'm just gonna work out and train, go back to school. He's like, no. You're a professional now. You need to come up with a legit plan of how you're going to get better. If you want to last in this league, you better come up with a plan in the offseason on how you're gonna get better. So I'm like, okay. So I went home. I had a plan set out. I was in school. I was training with this guy from back home. I come back. Long story short, that offseason, we signed Laurent Robinson to a receiver, 3 years, $32 million. We drafted Justin Blackman that year, 5th overall. And we just signed one of our other receivers for like 3 years, $11 million. So I went from being a draft pick to being last on the board. We had a new receiver coach, new regime come in. We had OTAs, and then we were getting ready for. Then we had like mini camps, and we had like it was something where we're getting ready for like mandatory veterans mini camp. And the receiver coach, Jerry Sullivan, who's the new coach that year, new coach for us. He's like a wide receiver whisperer, but he wrote like X position, the Z position, the F position, the Y, whatever. And he wrote down, okay, this is the first string, second string, third string, fourth string. And like, all right, y'all, I'll see y'all next week. Be ready to go. I'm like, coach, my name's not up there. Where do you want me? I was the only guy I didn't get his name rolling the board. Where do you want me? He's like, oh, well, I guess you can just be here at the F. So I'm like, damn. Another light switch went off.
Yeah.
Your coach, your position coach forgot about you.
Wow, yeah.
So went away for a week, came back, and I just like, I'm gonna listen to everything this guy says. If I want to make the team, because you know how it is, the new regime comes in, they want their guys. They already drafted Justin Blackman, who was awesome. They already paid 2 guys. For me to make this team, I got to do everything this man says and go back to, walk around Walmart, sticking and moving, running routes. Right. So that's kind of the mindset I went to. I was just studying my playbook over and over and over again, listening to whatever that coach was saying. And that offseason, there's a break after OTAs until training camp. So I started getting noticed a little bit. My goal was to make 1 play a day that got on film. And they're like, okay, who is this guy?
Right.
So receiver coach was like, okay, I see you. He started noticing me. I started getting a little bit more reps. He was like, hey, I want you to go to Minnesota and train for training camp. I'm like, all right, who's going to be out there? He's like, I want you to train with Larry Fitzgerald. And at this point in time, Larry Fitzgerald was probably the best in the league. Him, Calvin, Andre Johnson, there was those guys, right?
Yeah.
Like, go train with him for 2 weeks. I'll be out there. We'll work together. Boom, boom, boom. That changed my life. Changed my life.
Yeah. I've seen different like documentaries and videos on how Larry Fitzgerald used to train out there.
It's unbelievable that he worked like he's a undrafted free agent trying to make the NFL. That's how hard he works.
Right. Yeah, you can tell.
First one there, the last one to leave. He takes care of his body. He eats correctly. When I was there for 2 weeks, I got to basically live with him, and it's like you see the effort he put in to be as good as he is. So my eyes are okay. This is how I need to do to be a professional.
Right. This is the lifestyle that I need to mirror.
This is the lifestyle I need to mirror, right? Gotcha. And it was literally just all football. Train in the morning, eat correctly. It was just laid out perfectly.
Recovery, yeah.
Recovery. And I'm like, massages, Normatex, all type of stuff, right? Doctor, it's everything.
Yep, everything.
That's how you do it.
Gotcha.
And long story short, that ended up being my best year in the league.
Right. That's when you led the team in receiving and everything.
Led the team in receiving that year. And I made the team as the 5th or 6th receiver. And as time went on, it just got better and better and better. And of course, injuries happen. You know how it goes. Injuries happen. I kind of made my first start middle of the year and then never looked back.
Yeah.
I made a small name for myself. So it was a tough transition, but it was glorious at the same time.
Oh yeah, man. I love that. I love that. So, out of your 6 years, what would you say was maybe your best moment, during your NFL career? I think I'm seeing 229 receptions, essentially 3,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, 4 years with the Jaguars, one with the Texans, one with the Buccaneers. What moment would you say just stood out, just off the cuff, that immediately comes to mind? That first touchdown or something else?
I had a game-winning touchdown against the Cleveland Browns, 2013.
Oh, okay, of course. Okay.
That's the first thing that comes to
I think
mind.
I remember that game. I think I remember watching that game. Okay.
It's growing up in Cleveland, this. The plain dealer was it. Like if you
yes.
plain dealer, that was a big deal. Like
yes, it was.
They had like a separate section for high school sports. Like it was a big deal if you got in there, right?
Yeah, big
On
deal.
the front page of the plain dealer, it said hometown villain. And there was a picture of me catching the football over Joe Hayden for the game-winning touchdown.
Wow.
It was a memory I will
Never forget. Hopefully you got that picture in the man cave, man.
Oh, you know it.
Okay.
That's your dad. Dad kept it from me. He still got it in his man cave.
Oh, he still got it. Okay. I got you. So just a few more questions, man. I don't want to keep you. We almost at 11. I always like speaking about this, man. I think it looks like you got injured after that 2016 year, but when did you know that you were going to retire, and you started thinking about that transition of life after football?
I started having the idea of retiring going to right before I got to Tampa Bay. So I played 1 year in Houston, and then the second year in Houston, I had my best offseason, my best training camp. They drafted like Braxton Miller. They drafted a guy named Will Fuller from Notre Dame. They might have brought in somebody else. But you kind of like see the politics of everything being played, right? So in my eyes, it's like I'm gonna compete regardless.
All right.
I signed a 2-year deal with the Texans. So they actually asked me to take a pay cut. Like, hey, take a pay cut, we'll let you stay on the team, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, yeah, sure. It doesn't bother me at all. From a competitive standpoint, you want to play, right? But I'm gonna be on the team and be on the roster and just make the most of whatever comes my way. I'll be fine. You're getting paid, a lot of money. So I'm like, all right, cool. And then they end up cutting me while I was at a wedding. I thought I made the team. So cuts are over. I'm in a wedding, the best man in the wedding. And that morning of the wedding, I get cut.
Wow.
And I'm like, all right, how much longer I want to deal with this?
Right.
You told me I was gonna make the team. I had my best training camp, my best preseason. I'm being a good vet in the locker room. I'm helping the younger guys, helping them come along. I understand I can't play this game forever, but at the same time, I'm confident in my ability. I'm gonna teach the young guys and then go show them up, right? Just that competitive fire, being a good teammate. And then you cut me. I'm like, how much longer I want to do this, right?
Right.
I went from waking up, loving to compete, loving to go out to practice every day to as I'm getting older, I'm like, all right, I gotta go to practice today. Yeah, I mean, this the mindset.
Right. That mindset switch, yeah.
So I literally get cut while I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and I go from Columbus, Ohio to Tampa for a tryout. They're like, I try out, they're like, oh, we're gonna sign you, you're not gonna leave. We just want to make sure you were in shape. I'm like, oh, okay, well. So I signed, so left literally go from Columbus to Tampa, signed a contract, and then I'm out there. And the team was great. Todd Monken was my receiver coach. He's the OC now for the Ravens with Lamar Jackson and those guys doing very well, obviously. He was super cool. Got to know him very well. The head coach I knew him. He drafted me in Jacksonville, so I kind of knew Eric or Dirk Cutter, who was the head coach at Tampa Bay then. They're like, hey, we just want you to be our 5'6" receiver. And then as time goes on, let you compete.
Move you up a little bit. Okay.
I'm like, that's fine. So I had to learn the playbook, learn everything. But it was just frustrating because I'm like, I put all my effort to make the Texans everything right, and I still got cut. Now I'm here, got to learn a whole new system. I had a perfect plan for my body. Now I got to figure out different trainers, different, opportunity, different resources, what to do, what not to do. I pulling my hamstring early on, so I missed 3-4 games. So in my mind, I'm thinking, how much longer I want to play, right? And my goal was always to get 10 years and then kind of just call it quits.
Right.
So I'm just like, all right, how much longer I'm going to do this? I come back from my hamstring. I start getting some rhythm with Jameis Winston, who the quarterback was.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, I think Vincent Jackson gets hurt. Rest in peace to Vincent Jackson. He
Yeah,
actually,
yeah. Rest in peace. Yeah. Sad
so
story.
he gets hurt. He tears his ACL. He plays a whole game with a torn ACL, by the way. That's mind-boggling to me.
Remember that.
It's
Yeah.
crazy how different, as athletes, it's crazy our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Pushing through pain. Yes.
he played this actually the first 6 or 7 games with a torn ACL, just didn't know it.
Mm.
The pain came too bearing. Anyways, he gets hurt, so I get my opportunities. I made like 5 or 6 catches against I think Kansas City, and we won that game, and then somebody else, and then I get my first start uh, in San Diego. The Chargers were in San Diego at the time. In San Diego, get my first start, and I'll never forget this play. It was December 4th, 2016,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a 15-yard in route, and the guy was playing outside leverage, man coverage, but outside leverage. I give him a jab off the line. He hops out. I get vertical. I come in, and I think I'm gone, right? I think I'm going. I'm like, oh, throw the ball. I'm wide open. It's third down. Jameis throws it. As soon as I lay my hands on it, bow, somebody comes and hits me low. And in that moment, I actually caught the ball. I don't know how I caught the ball, but in that moment, I tried to get up and I couldn't. I'm like, hey, come help me. I can't get up. Like waving to the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
But my body was numb, I guess. It felt like I hit my funny bone, but in my knee. So it wasn't
Mm.
a lot of pain. It was just like whatever.
Okay.
So they flip me over and they start like playing with my knee, like trying to do whatever with it. So I'm like, hey, can y'all stop? I'm like, hey, can y'all stop? It doesn't hurt until y'all mess with my knee. And they're like, hey, we're trying to pop it back into place. You dislocated it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I lay back down and I'm thinking like last year I dislocated my shoulder, only missed 1 game. So knee, might miss 1 or 2 games, but I'll be back, right? I'm just in my head thinking recovery. Like I'll be
Yeah.
fine. Everything.
Right. Right.
Not knowing when you dislocate your knee, you tear everything in your knee.
Right.
Um, So they gave one last heave, and my kneecap was down near my ankle, and they had to kind of work it up,
Oh
and
my
like
goodness.
or down my shin, right? They had to work it up
Oh
and pop it.
yeah, yeah. Woo.
And I didn't know at the time, right? I didn't know.
Yeah.
So they take me to the hospital. I'm drugged up because the pain started kicking in. I'm drugged up, and I'm in the hospital for like almost a week. They wouldn't let me fly back to Tampa. They let me stay out there, but they're not telling me anything. So my wife's there, and she's like crying, and they're not telling me stuff. They're just kind of consoling me. Long story short, I was 2 centimeters away from having my leg amputated.
Wow.
So I ended up staying in California, and they didn't tell me that's about 3, 4 years ago. But
Mm.
I had my leg. I stayed in California for about. I got hurt December 4th. I stayed till about December 23rd. Had to get my first surgery. They had to stage my surgery, so I had to end up getting like 5, 6, 7 surgeries. But I didn't think about my transition enough. And I think that's what my mistake was. So
Okay.
you go out the NFL 3 ways. You retire on your own, which very few people do.
Mm-hmm.
You get cut or you get injured. And I got injured.
Right.
And for me, my whole focus was on my recovery because the injury was so tragic.
Right.
So literally for 2 or 3 years, I'm getting surgery after surgery, getting rehab after rehab. I just go to a dark place.
Mm-hmm.
But my transition out of the league was extremely rough,
Mm-hmm.
just because I was depressed. I was heartbroken. I wanted to live out my dream how I wanted to do. The Lord had
Right.
other plans, right? And then you're on these drugs constantly, and it makes my body feel terrible. And it was just so much that goes into it. Those 2 years of recovery, 3 years of recovery, it took me to a place where I couldn't even think about what I wanted to do after.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sitting there, and we were blessed to be in a decent spot, but I was just sitting there not doing anything and not
Mm-hmm.
realizing where I was, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't realizing I was in that dark place. So my wife was like, hey, you tripping.
You're right.
You tripping.
Right.
You don't do nothing all day. You just go to rehab, come home. I know you got surgery, but you gotta go do something. So I started to see a therapist, started getting help, and then I started climbing out of that depression and then start, going
Climbing
to
out that darkness. Yeah.
darkness and kind of going from there. So my
Yeah.
transition was rough from NFL to regular life, which is what it is, right? Regular
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm.
So it took about
That's
2,
fair.
3 years to get going. But once I got going, I'm doing decent now. But
Yeah.
man, That was a tough road.
That's real. That's real, man. So what I don't really hear a lot of folks talk about is how you like how do you mold yourself into a game day host? What you do now, you're a game day host for the Houston Texans. Yeah, I mean, that may sound funny, but a lot of people don't know the process. Like, I don't know if you had to audition or you had to maybe record your own self tape of you just doing you know a random hosting a random thing, or maybe you have to host your own podcast for a while just to show personality and whatever the case. So if you could just kind of talk about that, your trajectory as far as how did you start hosting? Did you have to start your own podcast, and then like kind of what that ladder was to get to where you are now of a game day host, and then obviously doing other content for the Houston Texans?
Bro, it's crazy. So I was hosting events for the Texans. They call it like nowadays they call it like the legends community.
Okay.
Every NFL team has legends. This means former players, right? But they say you were a legend somewhere. So just a former player. But I was doing events for the Texans, basically being an ambassador, just hosting different events around the city. Okay. And they pay you for it. And it was fun. I enjoyed it, but I started getting really good at hosting these events. Start showing personality, start getting comfortable, start speaking well. And they decided, hey, we're going to start to have in-stadium entertainment. Would you be interested in doing this? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. They're like, just try it. And they threw me in the fire. Okay. So it's preseason game. 100, no, not 100. It's probably like 60,000 people in the stands. And I got all these cards and I'm trying to figure out what to do. They kind of threw me in the fire. And the first time it went decent. And then from there, it's got better and better and better. And then the producer and myself, we started getting some chemistry, and this started taking off from there. Okay. So it kind of just made a made up thing that they saw me from doing different events around the city. Like, hey, we can do this. Yeah. And they kind of just threw it at me, and it kind of took off from there. But it's fun, man. I love it. Hosting is something I really, really want to keep diving into. Yeah. But it's something to stay close to the game, stay close to the fans. Right. Man, it's so much fun on game that they help get the crowd hype.
Yeah. I've seen you in action. I've seen a couple of videos. So I mean, what advice would you give for say a former player or players like us? Maybe they major in communications and they want to ultimately get a job like what you do. What type of advice would you give? Because I know you said for you kind of like fell into it. So what kind of advice would you give them just to just kind of help them get started if they really wanted to pursue it?
For communications, for sure. I think nowadays is different. I think podcasts help. I think anytime you get on radio, get on TV, reach out to the local radio stations, local TV stations, try to find different areas to host, whether it's hosting a prom, whether it's hosting different business.
Right. Get the reps in.
Just getting the reps in wherever you can, because the more you put yourself out there, the more comfortable you get, the better you get at it. Right? You get better with anything, repetition. So the more reps you get at it, I think the better you'll get. And then from there, just building relationships. That's all it is. It's just building relationships, keeping those relationships, and the opportunities to come.
Of course, man. I love that. So my last question, I always ask all my guests, what would you say is Cecil Shorts' after effect of his playing career? What were some lessons that you learned that you took and you kind of still hold now? You ingratiate into your family and you ingratiate into just your work ethic, essentially, as we try to like push the culture forward.
Consistency. And whatever you want to do, be consistent with it. Be the same person every single day, which is hard. Because as you know, there's ups and downs in life, but if you be consistent in what you want to do, and try to be that same person every single day, good things will come. Also think just the work ethic, just that grind, that grit. Coming from Cleveland, that's what we know. We know we had to grind to get where we are, what we have to get to what we want, right? And to me, I think honestly, and everybody is in different situations, but I think if you really want to pursue something and get wherever your ultimate goal is, you can find and get to that goal if you put the work in, if you're consistent, if your effort and attitude are in the right ways, and then you kind of build relationships from there. So those are some of the big things I kind of try to instill.
I love that, man. That's a great after effect, man. So yeah, that's all I had, bro. I appreciate you jumping on. One thing I've been trying to pride myself on since I started this in 2020 was, just giving guys flowers. I think that, there's some guys from where we're from Cleveland, that show love and give love, but in anything is hate and I don't see enough guys, especially black men, showing each other love, man. So as I want to just say, all the great things you've done, bro, in football, after football, obviously family man, husband, everything, leading man. I just want to show you that love and give you your flowers, bro, while we both still here.
Appreciate it, brother. I appreciate it, man. Same to you, big
Yes,
dog.
sir.
Always been a fan from a distance. So it's good just to be able to see you doing well. Proud
Yes,
of you,
sir.
big dog.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, man. Well, you take it easy and have a good day, man.
All right, you too, brother.
Peace.
Subscribe to LeBron Daniel TV, but you already knew that, where we dig deep and find our hustle, and every single day we are better than yesterday. Subscribe.